To Tanzania now, where the SADC Heads of State meeting is currently underway in Dar es Salaam. President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is attending the summit, is expected to deliver a report on progress made in the Lesotho Reforms talks. Now, the meeting is also expected to address peace and security in the region as well as the economic situation. Now, SADC says it is important for member countries to look at the recent report on the region's economic challenges. It wants all member countries to focus on industrial policy. And for more on this story, we now cross live to our correspondent, Daniel Kijo. A very good afternoon to you, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us. I've just mentioned some of the issues that will likely make it to the agenda. What are some of the outstanding issues that need to be tackled by heads of state?
Hello, how are you? And you hit the nail on the head. They can be basically grouped into two sides. The economic issues that would affect obviously health, education, other things, as well as security, which is necessary for any country to grow. Now, it's according to the numbers, the SADC region economic growth has been very slow. The bloc was supposed to have hit at least a 7% growth rate by 2020, and it looks like most of the economies, almost 75% of the economies within the SADC region have not hit that mark. Tanzania was commended for being able to at least hit 7%. So most of the discussions today from the executive secretary who spoke on the importance of using industries and intra-regional trade as a tool to boost economic growth and change lives of the people within the region. President Magufuli, who also took office today as the new chairman of SADC for the next 1 year, went in very strongly with urging countries to sort of look at industrialization and looking at trading between the blocs as a tool to grow. But looking on the other side, the defense area sector or discussion that you touched on, issues of Lesotho, issues of Zimbabwe happening are going to be discussed as well. In fact, as we speak now, heads of state are in a closed session discussing the security status or situation within the region. And of course, we expect that after that, tomorrow, the resolutions will be shared with the public and all members who are available, who will be at the conference, at the summit.
You know, China, we know that the Asian giant is now the new big brother to African countries, including SADC member states. And most of the African countries are now looking east and overlooking traditional lenders such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund for funding, and which has, sparked concerns that China is recolonizing Africa. Well, without preempting what will be discussed when it comes to the economic issues, I'm sure this will be tackled.
It's very possible to be tackled, but the thing that stood out for many of the people who are present at the summit today is the conviction that the heads of state show and towards getting independent and sort of using our own resources to sort of bring change. President Magufuli repeated the message that Africa is not poor. He kept saying that SADC countries are not poor. We are rich in oil, minerals, natural resources, and so much. And until we stop looking outside for trading and look at each other and our neighbors for trading, we will not be able to be as strong as Africans should be. So I think regarding the China-Africa relations, they could be touched on, but from what we gathered today, the new chairman, President Magufuli, is really looking at fellow African countries as a good trading partner first. And then obviously it's almost very difficult to avoid China when you're talking about global trade. So I think once these African countries are able to grow their own economies, improve their industries, they can have something to offer and not necessarily be dependent on Big Brother.
Now, Palamagamba Kabudi, who is the Tanzanian foreign minister and now the chairperson of the SADC Council of Ministers, has, of course, weighed in and is one of those calling for fast-tracking industrialization in Africa, particularly in the southern African states. But then we've seen a disconnect between governments and business and investment, which has always been a thorn, I would say, in the neck of most governments. So how will this be tackled differently moving forward?
And I think you touched an area that has been discussed many times as a hindrance to a good business environment for many African economies, including the SADC communities. Tanzania itself, in the last couple of years, under Magufuli's government, has been really looking to refresh and refine and improve the business processes in Tanzania. Tax regulations, agencies that deal with the business community, investment centers, import taxes, harbor and all the trading and processing that are done at harbors, and generally just a way to try and improve the way the private sector and investors can feel in countries of operation or doing business. So this is going to be part of what is going to be discussed collectively as a bloc. What can heads of state do to ensure that the private sector is comfortable, to also bring in global investors into a country, to create an environment where when people look at the SADC bloc, they see it as an area where they can make profit and grow, because business is all about being able to make profit in the most smooth way. And I think that's part of what will be discussed, and also harmonizing now policies between these different players, so that within the bloc trading is not a challenge and you have sort of harmonious flow between these countries. So this is definitely an area that will be touched on for sure.
And the regional bloc, Daniel Kijo, has always been accused of not having teeth and very slow to act when it comes to human rights abuses and violations, particularly in Zimbabwe. And I'm using Zimbabwe because there's so much tension going on in the past few days with the economy deteriorating. So do you get the sense that the SADC is now under immense pressure to change its focus to the way it approaches internal matters of its members, of its member states, that is?
It's very true. In fact, the executive secretary had touched on collectively working together to ensure that human rights abuse, issues like gender-based violence, etc., would be addressed. But what most people are waiting to see is now what would happen under the leadership of President Magufuli. In Tanzania and also globally, he has been called a bulldozer, a man who pushes things forward, who is no nonsense, who makes things done, who avoids the bureaucracies that you touched on. So he was very hard. He came on in his speech. He was very strong and very clear, and he says now it's the time to change. And in fact, he even went further and talked about the secretariat. He said, after seeing this degradation in the economies of SADC countries and all these other complaints, he would now push and work with the secretariat to make sure that it answers back and explains why things are not changing. So this kind of approach was very refreshing to some, and also a bit alarming maybe, because it's a style that is very direct, and he says he wants to bring change. So these next 365 days are going to be an interesting one, an interesting couple of months, to see what he will do.
All right, Daniel, I'm going to let you go so you can be our eyes and ears on the ground. But thank you so much for your time. That was our correspondent in Tanzania, Daniel Kijo, joining us live from Salaam.